Patrick Peterson and Kyler Murray were teammates for 2 seasons with the Arizona Cardinals. They were the quarterback's first 2 in the NFL and the cornerback's 9th and 10th in the league. Peterson moved on to the Vikings in 2021, and he's also one half of the All Things Covered podcast with 2-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden, who's also one of our guys here at CBS Sports HQ. Well, the topic of Kyler Murray came up on Wednesday's edition of the show, and here's what was said.
Kyler Murray is talking about, and I don't like how he's doing that. I think he should keep some things privately, but it tells me he doesn't care about his head coach. And he's putting everything on the head coach, basically saying
Kyler Murray don't care about nobody but Kyler Murray. That's just a matter of the fact.
I gotta. I can't argue. I don't know him personally. You played with him for a few years, so I got to take your word for it.
Well, Murray was made aware of what was said, and he tweeted back at Patrick Peterson saying, quote, "This isn't true. You on some weird stuff, P2. You got my number if you really felt this as a, quote, big bro or mentor. You're supposed to call me and tell me, and not drag me so your podcast can grow." And we're joined now by Bryant McFadden. B-Mac, we just ran the clip of what Patrick Peterson said about Kyler Murray and showed Murray's response. But can you give us some context here? How did this all come about on the podcast Wednesday?
Well, Russ, let me clear something up on my behalf. I misread the quote in regards to Kyler during the post-game presser when he said, schematically speaking, they were screwed. He wasn't talking about the entire ball game offensively. He was talking about one particular play during that ball game. Now, when you transition to the dialogue with me and Pat P., of course, you know, Pat P played out in Arizona for 2 years with Kyler Murray, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was exactly 2 years. So, you know, as a teammate, you know, he feels like he has a good understanding about Kyler Murray. And I just sat back. You know, I sat back, as I stated. I don't know Kyler Murray personally, so I can't really speak on him, you know, on and off the football field. But I allowed Pat to have the floor, and Pat took the floor and, you know, did what he did. And hopefully these two individuals can talk things out, because clearly there's a mutual respect for both parties when you talk about on the football field and off the football field. But it didn't. I was just surprised to hear what was said in regards to the player. But then also, if you look at what has come out of Arizona, then you're not as surprised to hear what Pat P has said, because, you know, you look at the contract that he recently signed, Kyler Murray signed, it felt like they were putting stipulations in that contract based on things they've seen from him as a player. And I'm just looking at things from the outside lens, just like everyone else who's not associated with that organization. So hopefully, you know, we see more coming from Kyler Murray in regards to consistency, because we know what type of player he is. But yeah, you know, I just sat back and I just listened, just like the rest of you guys did.
Look, I feel like you don't hear players, especially active players, talk about other players personally. Do you think Pat might have stepped over like an unwritten rule, like crossed a line in any way? Or is this cool? You speak your mind, you say what you think, and you move on?
I mean, he's freedom of speech. He spoke his mind. I don't think he was disrespectful. I felt like he didn't attack, you know, Kyler personally. He's just talking about from the football side of things. You know what I mean? So, and like I said, he's a teammate. He was a teammate of Kyler Murray. This is not the same as an outsider saying something in regards to a player who he don't know personally, he hasn't been around. Pat P was out there in Arizona. And I'll say this again, Russ, if you look at what happened during his contract situation when they were going back and forth, when they finally came to terms on a contract, they had a stipulation in his contract we'd never seen before in regards to study time. Now, they removed that stipulation based on the backlash that all the outsiders were giving the organization. But for an organization to have the guts to do something like that, that was a telling sign for all of us.
Well, I'll tell you something. The All Things Covered podcast has now become must-listen podcasting. Can't wait till the next one. It's live from Minnesota this weekend. You got to be psyched going out there doing a live podcast.
No question. I'm just praying for clear skies, no snow. I know it's going to be polar bear cold. It's going to be extremely cold, polar bear toenail type cold. But no snow, so I can navigate and move and enjoy this outstanding game between the Jets and the Vikings. And yes, you're right. We will be doing our podcast live inside the stadium right when the game is over. Got Pat P joining me. Hopefully might get a few of his teammates as well. But you know, what makes our podcast better is when the Vikings win. So hopefully they have a big time win against the New York Jets so we can have another outstanding podcast for you guys this upcoming week.
Hey, people speaking personal truths is always good too. B-Mac, great to see you. Look forward to the podcast. It's all things covered. It's going to be live this weekend right after the Vikings host the New York Jets with B-Mac and Patrick Peterson.